Hello and welcome to PM Express. My name is Nana Ansakwa. Now, throughout this week, as you can see, our mode has changed. As I say that, I know you were fed up with tariff increase, TUC strikes, the Public Account Committee unable to account for any penny. And you just sit, and every time I come on your screen, I'm going to give you a sad story. So I thought, no, this week, let us feed ourselves with some positive information. And today I am talking to Brother Ishmael Tete on the issue of growing the empowered child. And that strike a chord because I see a lot of children with so much hopelessness, peddling PK at the lights, and you just know that this guy is an aeronautic engineer. You see a lady, selling sugarcane, and you know she's a beautiful and a most efficient nurse, but she just stuck with, sugarcane in her pan, pitched by some traffic lights, waiting for you to buy it. Is that the way forward for the youth? No. So if indeed there is a book or an idea saying growing the empowered child, I want to know how it is done so that you and I, can watch and do this program and walk out of it with something at the end of it. So this week, it's all positive. We'll come back after this week and tell you who embezzled what and who's on strike next. But this week, we are on the positive note. So first of all, I want to say thank you very much, Brother Ishmael, for granting us in your busy schedule this interview so that you can feed us with what growing the empowered child is all about. But I find the title, if the child is already empowered, then just leave the child to grow, isn't it? But obviously the title tells me is like how to guide a child to grow, hopefully. But what is growing the empowered child?
First, we need to consider who is the empowered child. The empowered child is a child who is happy, confident, creative, responsible, and with a drive for excellence. And this is a tall order, but it is very easy if we really want to grow empowered children. And the topic actually tells us that we are already empowered. We came to the planet already empowered. And if we shall have the right education, that will enable us to evolve our empowered self, then we are going to have different types of human beings than what we are having now. Presently, we are having what I call the stereotype human beings. We grow as children into adulthood, trying to just replicate what we have seen. So we end up becoming patterned reproductive thinkers than reproductive thinkers. You see, we are just than productive thinkers. In any issue in human life, you are thinking, what did my teacher say? What did my mother say? You do not go into yourself to find your own solutions.
How do I feel it should be done?
So we are always reproducing what we have received. And we must deviate or move away from that type of a stereotype way of thinking and living.
But Ishmael, that is very difficult because you grow up in a society, you grow up in a family, you grow up in a school, and you've come to the world with nothing other than all these things that you were seeing in society. So then it becomes difficult for you to say, well, what would my dad do in this situation? Because at that situation, or when you were growing up, you were with your dad. So how do you then break away from that and say, oh, my daddy did this way, so I'm not going to do that?
So this is where we have this program, so that parents will now know that, no, I don't have to raise another version of me. We all came with different thumbprints, meaning that each of us is unique. Each of us has something unique to offer than just being another image of your father or of your mother. And you see, if you watch the world, the way we grow our children, especially in Africa, we want to raise obedient children. If you raise an obedient child, you end up having a stupid adult. So, sorry for me to say, but that's what it is. Because in any given situation, he or she is looking for what daddy say, what mommy say, instead of using their own individual creativity. So you've succeeded in just having stupid adults. What we need is to raise respectful children, not obedient children.
Okay.
So that they can really have their own thinking. We must help our children to come up with their independent thinking, enjoy their curiosity so that they can come up with who and what they are. Today, the type of education we are having is what I call information education. You're just dumping and pumping every information into the child, and no parent stops to ask, who is this child and what has this child got to offer? When we ask that, we are going to give a different type of education that will help the child involve and evolve his or her own uniqueness. If you don't make that happen, you've destroyed the child. And we are all destroyed adults in the world. Hence, this work, Growing Empowered Child, is coming to help us to rethink our methods of raising our children.
Brother, then I ask that, is it achievable?
It is achievable, and in fact, very easy indeed. It's very interesting that in Ghana, I've not got even one school that is fully embodying Growing Empowered Child, but in America, I have a school that is using Growing the Empowered Child, and they are doing very well. They love it. Because all the programs in Growing Empowered Child are just games. You see, we talk so much about our problems around. And if every action comes from thinking, then we need to develop in our children thinking skills or mind skills. We go through school, every career, if you want to be a mechanic, you need to have some mechanic skills. But when it comes to you as an individual, what makes you define you, to define the way you think, so you can even have thinking skills? And this is where the Growing Empowered Child comes in.
So that's definitely achievable.
It is achievable. You see, when we talk about Growing Empowered Child, it's proposing 3 simple methods or 3 simple programs that we have to give attention to in the raising of a child. 1, you need to raise a child who is in touch with his or her uniqueness. 2, you need to raise a child so the child knows how to live with the forces of fear and anger. When a child is free from fear and anger, then the child grows up naturally as a peaceful and powerful being.
We'll break all that down, but the challenge I think we have now is that we've had adults now who were brought up as obedient children and quote and unquote have become stupid adults. Now they, in their stupid adult stage, need to outthink the box and start training the new ones coming. And empower them. Now that has become a challenge. How do I now say that, no, I'm going to let my child be seen and be heard at the same time, when a child is only supposed to be seen and not be heard?
And not be heard.
You see.
Well, so now, every parent in the world desires a child who is happy, confident, creative, responsible, and with a drive for excellence. In other words, every parent already wants an empowered child.
Yes.
But nobody has given the parent the tools for him to raise an empowered child. Parents don't know even who is a child. I asked many adults, when did you become an adult? And they don't even know what adulthood is even about. When you were growing up, there was a time probably in your life that you were afraid that when I grew up, how can I survive? How does my father, my parents, how were they doing it? And suddenly you found yourself in adulthood that you have not been prepared for. So we as adults need preparation. We need to be re-taught. And since we already desire to have brilliant children, we already want to have empowered children, it's very easy when we make the materials available to parents.
The first thing a child should do is to live without fear. Brother, if you're a Ghanaian, your first thought as a child is to live with fear. Number 1 is your fear that you're going to go to hell. That's number 1. Number 2, your fear of school, being punished at school.
And your fear of ghosts.
Fear of ghosts, fear. And now, every movie you watch, there's a witch going to catch somebody. There's a juju man going to jinx somebody. So, for us, fear is now probably second nature or culture.
And if we continue that way, then we are going to destroy ourselves. This is why we as a community need to sit and rethink our values. We need to rethink what we are doing to our children. And if we say that the children are the future and we don't do the right thing with them now, then there's no future anyway. In fact, the world will be destroying, self-destructing itself unless we choose to do something. Now, in this work, we're talking mainly about fear and anger. What is fear? Fear is a restriction you seek to put on yourself. Anger is a restriction you seek to put on other people just to pacify your inner confusion. If we even know this definition and we ask ourselves, there's no parent out there who wants to put restriction on the children to stop the child's creativity. Every parent wants the child to evolve and be more creative, but they do not know that the simple little things they are doing in the home are affecting their children negatively. It is simply lack of the right information. Imagine that with the formation of the United Nations in 1945, is it 1944 or 45? It's been quite a time, right? Imagine that the world body said, let us raise children who are free from fear and anger. We know that we are all good people. It is fear, it is anger that cause people to war and to fight among themselves. Suspicion is a shade of fear. What will make a nation unprovoked develop weapons of mass destruction if it is not suspicion? So with growing the power child, we are addressing the fundamental issue, the fundamental forces that make the person become an angry person in a way.
Brother, let me come in here. If there's no fear, aren't we opening the floodgates? Oh, I can do whatever I want because now I don't have any fear.
You see, there's a thin line between fear and wisdom. We will now be using wisdom. If I don't put my hand on the fire, it's not because I'm afraid of the fire, because I'm wise. I'm wise that putting my hand on the fire means I'm going to destroy myself. So what we need is wisdom and not fear. All of us as children, even from baby, we grew up with some emotion, an emotion that you may describe as anger, but it is wisdom. The emotion that will say, I won't allow this in my world. So even a baby, when the baby has soiled himself, will start kicking the legs. It's a demonstration of, no, I don't like this. So you see, but when you are used by the same emotion, instead of you using that emotion, then you are a slave. Have you overreacted before? Overreaction implies that action required maybe 1 ton of anger, but you gave 1,001 ton. Where did the 1,000 ton
extra
came from? So that tells us that we are loaded with something and we need to do some inner cleansing so we can now realize that, okay, as a father, I've done the wrong thing. We are all victims of victims of victims. The way I've been raised, I'm likely to raise my children the same way. But if somebody will give me the right knowledge, I will pause and ask myself, is there a better way of raising a child?
I want to stay with fear. And, the Bible says that the fear of God is beginning of wisdom. So maybe even as human, we need some fear, to keep us in check. And there you are saying that to empower the child, take fear out of the child.
I happen to be a minister of God, and I know how people read the Bible as a storybook instead of a spiritual book. So they don't understand even what is said. When the fear spoken thereof has nothing to do with the human fear of I'm running away from something. If you fear something, you run away from it. So if we fear God, we shall run away from God. But God wants us to come closer. What the Bible meant there is that the awesome respect for God. You respect somebody so much, you say, oh, I fear the person. So it is used metaphorically. It's not to be taken literally that we have to be afraid and run away from God. We are rather to love God. What did Jesus teach? He said, love God with all of your heart, with all of your might, and your neighbor as yourself. How can I love God when I fear Him? So you see the contradiction. The fear spoken of is not about that human fear that if I don't do this, that Daddy will punish me and so on. But it is also respect for God.
In our confused adulthood, because we produce all these so quote-unquote Nigerian movies, and I don't know if you've had time or looked at the posters, but there's always gory images, always constantly gory images. And you ask yourself, is this the true reflection of who we are? Or is this now becoming the new us? Has it always been us? And the young ones, again, I'm saying that are feeding on it. So
seriously feeding on it. And this is only the young ones. this nation is plagued in fear. If you will recall, in 1997, there was a piece of news that came up that some people were passing by, and when they shook your hands, your genitals will shrink. And you know what happened in this nation? Many people were killed. I was probably the only voice on radio and the paper saying that this is not true. By spiritual law, this is impossible. But then, of course, we have those we call the doom and gloom day preachers who were on the air saying that the devil is set loose on the planet. This is what we've been telling you. So people became truly afraid. You shake hands with a person, and then the person starts checking whether his members were there.
Probably out of fear, they might even shrink.
Yes. I recall a very interesting case, and I believe somebody may know the case. A very pretty lady from a decent or dignified woman was in a taxi. At Atabraka, the taxi driver made the alarm that his genitals had shrunk, and women and men beat this woman, and excuse me, they put plantain into her genitals. Now this woman, when we were called to go and treat her, was in the corner of the room, and we didn't want to see anybody. As soon as she sees people, panicking. Thank God, with my master spiritual science called soul processing, it's a mind science technology, we were able to recover her. But it took us several days. My practitioners could not win, so they have to call me, and I have to go in to use some of our advanced mind science technologies to recover her to herself. She was lost to herself. I have to write letters all the way to the then president, Rawlings. I don't know whether it was because of my letter or whatever. He came on the air and said, anyone who will make such claim should be sent to the hospital. If found to be untrue, should be prosecuted. Suddenly, the so-called devil disappeared. Instantly. So the so-called devil was afraid of President Rawlings, you see. That will tell you that we are really doing all of this, and we are not very sure what is happening. In my home, my children will not watch such movies. If you watch a movie in my home as a child, you have to tell me the benefit the movie had been to you. Because I'm raising empowered children. And I'm happy I have children who are very clean and very clear. Now they can watch, and in fact, they even don't enjoy it. They see it and it's like, this is nonsense, so they just ignore it.
I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, we're going to find out how a child has to live without anger. When we need anger, I mean, in this state, especially in Africa, we need an angry youth to change things. Brother is telling us that we shouldn't live without anger. Now, he's explained that we should live without fear. But how about anger? Stay tuned, we're coming straight back. Hello and welcome back. Growing the empowered child. That child should live without anger. Now, I say most of our problems today is because we are not angry. Those who have followed me, I always say, why aren't we angry? Why aren't we angry? We need to be angry to get things moving. Maybe I'm talking about different sort of anger, but I think everybody needs a bit of anger, a bit of frustration to get things moving. And if you lose that, then we'll be in this situation where, you turn on and say, oh, he took that money, okay. Oh, and he took those cars and never paid for it, okay. But if you are angry and said, no, you can't take those cars, then maybe, we'll put things in check.
Yes, I did explain that even as a baby, you demonstrate anger because when you soil yourself, you want to throw your legs, cry, and say that, no, I don't want this, right? When you are angry on your own weaknesses, on your own sense of mediocrity, then you are actually using anger. But when anger uses you, every emotion within you is useful, only when you use it. But when it uses you, then you are a slave.
I want you to say that.
Even, I say, every emotion in you is useful, only when you use it. But when it uses you, then you are a slave.
Okay.
Even if happiness uses you, you are a slave. Sometimes a thought or an idea comes to your mind and it's making you happy. So you keep thinking about it for a long time and you block other creative thoughts from coming to your mind. So that happiness thought has actually been a disservice. It's not used properly. So every emotion, whether it is joyful emotion or painful emotion, they are all useful. Only when you use them.
Okay.
So the empowered child is the one who is in touch with his inner world. You see, all of education today is about survival education, learning how to read, write, and be able to eat, mate, sleep, and die. That's all. The gorilla does not have university education, but it survives. What we need is a new education that enables us to have access to our inner wells, to know why we feel what we feel, and how to manage our feelings. There's no education out there that teaches you how to manage your feeling. When a child grows, gaining access to his or her feeling, gaining access to his or her thoughts. We have a program for the youth in my ministry called Mind Mentoring. So they are able to see their thoughts, able to taste, so they can then direct their thoughts. After all, thought is the father of action. Repeated action produces your behavior. Sustained behavior becomes your attitude. Attitude prolonged becomes your nature. Your nature produces your destiny. So if you want to change your destiny, you have to start by changing your thinking. But if you don't know how to gain access to your own thoughts, then how can you change? Can you start a thought? Can you change a thought? Can you stop a thought? When you can, then you are self-controlled. If not, then your thoughts, one thought keeps chasing the other. And if thoughts keep chasing the other in your mind, then you cannot be creative. Because the thoughts do not even settle for you to know, this is what I want to do with this thinking. This is where the Empowered Child comes in. And with the Empowered Child program, we just use games to help children to gain access to their anger feeling, to know the source of the angry feeling, and to know how to use them. And these are all simple games. It sounds very big, growing the empowered child. But they are just games that children play, and it gives them access to their inner wells.
Again, I realize that the Americans have taken the book and are using it in their curriculum, that every child should have, bits and pieces of what you've written in your book. I just want to find out that since the book is from here and the brains that wrote the books is from here, what are we doing, with the book?
Well, you've asked a very deep question. It's not only growing the empowered child, and it's not all of America, but we have an American school, Melrose School, elementary school for math and science.
Okay.
And they are working with growing the empowered child now, and they're receiving, they can see great progress in the performance of the children, both academically and morally. More importantly, their behavior. When you grow an empowered child, you don't need to use canes to put the child right, because the child is inwardly directed. Dr. Wendy Caveney and Monica Hagen came together. You are holding the Ghana version, but they have even recreated an American version that is selling very well in the US. But here in Ghana, it's like we want to blame all of our inadequacies to some external power instead of taking responsibility. Over there, they realize that we have to take responsibility for the way our children grow. So they see the programs here so simple, and they are engaged in it. So that's why it's now becoming more of a success story in the US. Actually, there was this gentleman, David Steele. He came here. I have a church.
Sure.
So he was with me in the church. And then we got home and asked, how come the children in the church are so self-contained and each one is so happy? So he wanted to know, so I said, no, I won't tell you. Next week when we go to church, you will understand why. You know what I did? We came to church and I took him to the children's class and I shouted and screamed at the children, you stupid boys and girls! And they all got up and said, it is not about me. It is not about me. It is not about me. And he was like, then I came another one. Good children, then they all said, yeah, that's very like me. Bright children, that's very like, and they started dancing to it.
Psychologically tuned.
Tuned. Look, we have school system, the place where children gather. If we can just add growing empowered child program, and something that every school can just spend maybe 15 minutes a day with this program to start every class, wow, there will be a huge change in this nation in less than 5 years. For example, if we shall give the children a program called Born Leader. The Born Leader program is a very simple program in which they just keep marching and they keep saying some well-researched statements like, I believe in myself, I love myself, leave me alone, I can be myself, leave me alone. So they keep looking at all the critics, because you have grown with many critics. Today you are ineffective because when you are going to do something, you are afraid of the opinions of people, because they are the critics' voices inside you criticizing you. So you are ineffective. Must we raise children the same way so they grow up ineffective? Their creativity is stalled? No.
I'll go back to anger. You see, if my son went out to play and then he came in and says, "Oh, this little girl hit me," is my son. Look, don't come here and say me a little girl hit you or a little boy hit you. Hit them back, or show them that you're a man. Because I don't want to bring him up as a girl, do I, brother? I need to let him know that you're a man and defend yourself. And that's where this anger business come in.
An eye for an eye will leave us with. All right, nobody will now have our eyes. All right, but of course, in my ministry, for example, we learn Taekwondo. It's part of my discipleship training, and my children are all Taekwondo experts.
I see.
But they've never fought. I don't think Nikomi has ever beaten anybody. So he at least knows how to
defend himself
without hurting anybody. We take it also as a way of creating mental alertness, right? Because the pumses and the movement are quite good for you as an exercise, and again for mental alertness. So it's part of the training. So you can empower your child differently than telling a child, go and beat that other child. No. So there are many ways to go about it.
Without necessarily getting angry.
You see, we need to look at the fundamental causes of the anger in the first place. You see, it all starts with the loss of the sense of uniqueness. You do something wrong. It happened to your life before and to many people. You did something good. And your parents said, good boy, and you felt good. They told you the truth. When you did something wrong, and they told you this is wrong, you felt bad. Because there is something in each one of us. We were born with it. I call it our innate image of perfection. This innate image of perfection states that I've done something wrong does not make me a wrong person. So even when you do something wrong, and they label you wrong, something inside you resists it. The whole problem of humanity is starting from the wrong labeling. The image of perfection is fighting something. When your child does something wrong, instead of saying you are a bad boy, and by bad I mean all the derogatory words we use on children, instead of saying you are bad, tell him what you've done is wrong. Nee, this does not look like you. If possible, first acknowledge the child's strength and show the child how the action does not work in conformity with his highest self. Using this simple approach means the child now is empowered to say, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done this wrong.
I'm better than this.
I'm better than this. So use the I'm better than this approach.
But he could have broken your vase that your great-grandmother left to your grandmother and left to and it's sentimental in the family, and there's me just hitting off the...
If you are a parent, that's why you need patience to help the child. A child broke the vase, and then you tell the child, or you beat the child. What will the child... Daddy, I didn't did it. I'm using that English because I've heard it practically. I didn't did it. But you broke the vase. No, I didn't. I only kicked the ball. Then it hit the ceiling. Then it hit the ground. Then it hit the ball. It hit the vase. The child's mind has not seen the relationship between kicking a ball and all the steps to breaking a vase. Beating the child will not solve, will not put any wisdom in the child. So you need to be patient to ask the child, who broke the vase? I didn't did it, but who did? It is the ball. To the child's mind, it was the ball that broke the vase. So you have to be patient to say, how did it happen? Did the ball hit the ceiling? How did it hit the ceiling? I kicked it. So who made the ball hit the ceiling? I. And you see, step by step, you have created that link. The child has now learned. The child will hardly repeat that error.
What if it's there are some children that are a bit naughty. There are some that you say no and they understand. There are some that no. You tell them 1,000
Let me tell
times.
you, every child is born innately good. Bad, by whatever means, is something that they learned. And most times, a child who is naughty is simply operating what we call the coping mechanism. When a child is not heard, when the child has some creativity, and you are suppressing the creativity, then naughtiness come out. But right from birth, if you watch your children, you will know where their interests are. And then you allow the child to explore that interest. If I want my child to keep quiet, when Nikomi was growing up, and I want him to really behave, all I need is to give him some tools to start playing. Because I realized from childhood, when I had a refrigeration mechanic or engineer come to the home, my son will be there looking on. So when I went to the UK, I bought these Lego things and then screwdrivers and so the plastic screwdrivers, and he will sit and he will be screwing things. So he was engaged. So look into the child. I mean, don't create another version of yourself. Your child came with heavenly gifts. So identify those gifts and provide the environment. This is where we'll need to ask the question that, are you a right parent? Because parenting must even start right from before conception.
I will go to parenting, and I want to do this uniqueness that empowering the child's uniqueness. You see, we have a culture where maybe you want your child to be an accountant. Your child comes to you and said, "Dad, I want to be a pastor." Good. But if your child comes and says, "I want to be an actor," nowadays, you might agree. But back then, you dare not come and tell your father that I want to be a footballer. Even today, in Ghana today, if your child came and said that I want to play basketball, what are you talking about? Where are you going to play that basketball? Am I going to send you to America to play the basketball, or are you going to play it here in Ghana? And indeed, how far would you go? But that could be his passion. In that case, do I direct the child, maybe stick with balls by kicking with your leg rather than your arm, so you go into football? How do you enhance such uniqueness? Because it's not
we have a program in the Growing Empowered Child. We have several modules. We have actually 16 modules, and each module has maybe 5 or 6 games, all right? And one of the modules is called Success Genius. It's a program that any parent can learn to help the child identify his or her real goals. Sometimes a child will come and say, I want to play basketball, because the child watched it on television or heard it that, you can make money, so the child just likes it. But you need to help the child identify his potential. That word is sometimes overused without people even knowing what potential is. Potential simply means the things you can do. Have your child sit with you to write 50 things, depending on the child's age. From age 12, I make them write 100 things they can do in one sitting. There's a magic. By the time they get to 20, something will tell them, that's all I can do. But when they sit with it, they break through what we call the threshold of the mind. Now they are able to know 50 things they can do. Now the 50 things they can do means 50 possible potentials. Now help the child to find which are these things among these 50, what among these 50 do you really enjoy doing?
I'll take a break here. I've never thought of that. I have never thought of that. I hope you've learned something new. We're coming back. I was going to move to parenting, but when we come back, I want to identify this uniqueness, and then I'll go to that magic word, parenting, because I think we have all fallen short of good parenting. We're coming straight back. Growing the empowered child, that's what we're talking about today, and there's lots and lots of children here who are really empowered. Now, how do you grow that child so that they grow without fear, anger, and identify their potential and enhance it? And I am saying, just before we went on the break, let your child sit down at a sitting and write 50 things they think they can do, and then out of that 50, narrow it down to what they think they like best, rather than if it comes to you say, I want to be an actor, I want to be a banker, I want to be a doctor. That may not be what they want, but it's just that, as brother was saying, they've seen it on the television. The reason why I'm going on and on is because I've just learnt it. I've just learnt it myself. That's why I'm going on and on. I'm sure you at home have also picked it up. But I like that. So at a sitting, you write 50 things.
That's if they are let's say up to 12
Up to
years.
12.
Yes. After 12, I make them write 100 things they can do. Simple things like I can sweep, I can laugh. You know, somebody can laugh and make money. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a guy in Somalia who goes about laughing,
Laughing,
and they bring him to schools to laugh, and then the whole school laughs with him.
All right.
Yeah.
So anything you can do, then we narrow it to the 10 things you can do best. And then we go further to, okay, out of each of these things you can do, what career do you think you can have? Let your children start thinking that way right from age 12. By age 12, Jesus has declared, I must be about my Father's business. At age 12, your child should have an idea what he or she wanted to be. With this program, they break through what we call the threshold of the mind. Everybody has a threshold where you say, that's all I can do. That's all I can be. It's never true. There's never a moment when this is all you can do. So right from that age, you help your child to break through the threshold. Sometimes they get to 10, 15, and they say, that's all I can do. Okay, let's carry on and see. And that 2-3 minutes, and then they start coming up with more things, many more things that they can do. Then for each one, what career do you think you can have? Start such discussion. By age 18, a child will be clear that this is what I can do. You see, there's a difference between being successful and stressful. That's my coin word. Success with stress. Successful means doing what you enjoy doing, that honors you and promotes life. So when a child is in the career that a child enjoys doing, and that career is promoting life as a whole, and it brings honor to the child, then that is what we call success. With this definition, the child wants now to have careers based on what he organically enjoys doing. So we have organic careers than just going in for basketball or football. Many young boys today want to be a Asamoah because they can make money. So I want to do soccer. But sit them down and they will realize that they have many other potentials.
Okay.
And probably soccer is not even one of them.
I see. I see. I think it's a good exercise, and everybody watching at home today, get your kids down and get them start writing to find out what their true identify. But you see, I hope I would have had a whole show on parenting and not my last 15 minutes, because I think a great majority of our problems today would have been wrong choices that parents would have made, and then you unleash these offsprings onto society. Parenting, how do you get it right?
So the whole problem of the community starts from the home. And if parents are not taught, you know, there were things we used to do when we were children, now we know better ways of doing them. But when it comes to parenting, it's like there's no manual, no education on how to parent a child. When a 13-year-old girl accidentally becomes pregnant and she has a child, she's become a parent. She herself needs parenting. How do you parent a child when you don't know even how to parent yourself? Who is your child? Many parents do not know that everybody, you sitting here now, there are things you sometimes do like a woman. Am I right? Check your life. You have a male component, you have a female component. If you don't know this, then many times as a man, you want to suppress your female's side. And there are many women too who have, every woman has male, in fact, each one of us, we have male-female components. So if you don't know it, then you don't know even how you express. So you want to raise your child in the stereotype, you have to be a boy, you don't have to cry. Boys don't cry, end up in depression. Am I right? So many of them end up, we are suppressing emotion. And when you suppress the emotion, one day it will burst, right? Parenting starts even before you give birth. You, the parents, must sit down and ask yourself, why do we want to have a child? Everyone is moving, so I'm moving on. You know that song?
No.
Oh, the olden days. Oh, okay. So if everyone is silly, you're also being silly. We are just having children without asking ourselves, why? Why do I need a child? What good have I seen on the planet for which reason I want to raise children to champion?
Brother, but if you don't have a child, your mother-in-law, your sisters, your father, your clock is ticking, tick-tock. Some even say, well, hurry up and give it, even if you don't want to marry, just,
give me children.
Just give me children, and later on you can think about your marriage.
Core, it's because we want to feel that when I'm dead and gone, I'm survived. All right? In other words, when I go, there are people who will even remember me. But people don't really go deep in their thinking. If I ask you the name of your mother, you may be able to tell me. Her mother, you may be able to tell me. She to her mother, you will not be able to tell me.
I know though.
Right?
I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
you'll be one out of the 100 who know up to the 4th generation.
Great grandmother.
Right? Your mother, her mother,
and her mother.
And her mother.
Yeah.
Then you are lost.
Yeah.
You see. So between you and this one, there's only 3 mothers in between.
So I have Nanessa, and then Abnoye, and then Ofusuhima, and then Atachechua.
You are wonderful. You are 1 out of 100. Ask anybody out there. All right.
Ask, do you? No, all my crew, they can't go far back.
So you see, you are not remembered by the children you have. You are remembered by the works of good that you bring to the planet. There was a man by the name Yeshua. His Western name is now called Jesus. He had no children. We still know him and we love him. Not because of the children he left behind, but by his good work. There was another man by the name Muhammad, peace be unto him. He had wives and children. Today, nobody cares about his lineage, his children. Nobody even knows. But by his good works, we remember him. Not by the number of children he left behind. So we need that wisdom in us. So when it comes to parenting, first you need to know who your child is. How does the child process information? Every child processes information differently. Not only as boys and girls, but if even you have 4 boys, you will observe that some of them process information by what they see, others process by what they smell, by what they hear, taste. We call it the 5 senses. Which sense does your child use in processing information? If you don't know this as a parent, you don't know your child. If your child, for example, processes information by touch, when the child is learning, the child needs something to be holding and touching while learning. When my children were growing up, my daughter will come having some problem. I know she's a touch person. So whenever she had a problem and I want to teach her, all I need to do is to sit with her by the table, hold her hand and start teaching her. Believe me, she will be open and understand it easily because her communication with the world is through the sense of touch. How many people know this? A sight person, you need to have things of color. I pioneered computer engineering and desktop publishing to this country in the early 80s. And nobody could believe that I could train computer engineers in 6 weeks, including electronics. But on every table, there were colors, things you can hold, things you can see. And I made sure that I use their senses in a way that everybody in the class can respond very fast. So within 6 weeks, they've mastered how to dismantle computer, fix it back, build computer from scratch. Those were the days we have to use chips and so on. And they knew it at their fingertips. There was a time in this country when you went for when you go to a company and say you have a computer knowledge, they ask you, are you Oakfield trained? Because I was having Oakfield computers. Because I know how to teach using the senses. Everybody learns through the senses. Am I right?
Sure.
And if you ask yourself, you will observe that you process information in a particular way. You, for example, you are more a sight person because whenever you are going to think, I see your eyes go up this way. And whenever the eyes go up, it's a person who thinks through sight. When the eyes go to the left, to the right, a person processes information through sound. When the eyes come down, the person processes information through touch. How many people have researched and know this? So if you don't know this, you don't know you. You don't know even the child you are raising. So we are just simply victims of victims of victims.
But I also use hearing a lot. Like, so when I'm in class, whatever the teacher said in class, I can reproduce that during examination rather than what I go and sit down to read. So would I be more also hearing? Or
everybody has 1 or 2 dominant sense or senses.
Okay.
Everybody. And then then we have what we call...
I'm sight and hearing then.
Yes, so then we have the mediating sense. I am smell and touch.
Okay.
Right? Then we have the mediating senses. Then we have the minor senses. If you allow the dominant sense also to rule you, it always takes you into error. It's like dictatorial government. So this is why we need...
So parenting means you need to find out all these things.
You need to know about you. Parenting is about self-discovery. Parents need to discover how they operate. Then you need to discover then, how does my child operate? So that you raise the child from his natural organic qualities. Then you impose some
let me come in here. So then the unfortunate Kaya who has to come to Agbogloshi market because of lack of something within her region, then gives birth. Where is she going to know what her, I think I'm fairly educated. I'm just realizing that I see and hear, which is quite true. I like to learn by seeing and hearing. So I can watch a movie and say, almost recite the movie back at you rather than read the book. And so how is she going to know this and reproduce for society to benefit?
It all has to start somewhere. If society is serious about peace is the identification and free expression of our innate potential. Mm-hmm. If you don't identify your potential and you see others expressing theirs, you feel cheated. This causes internal confusion. That gives birth to external confusions, conflicts, and wars. Again, if you identify it but you can't express it, you have the same problem. Mm-hmm. So we need to raise children who are expressing their potential instead of looking to express other people's potentials. So you see, humanity is growing up like, we are having false humans. Because I'm growing to be my father instead of me. And life gave me a different thumbprint from my father. So I came to the planet with something that is unique. And nobody is giving attention to who is this child? How does this child operate? And what fertilizer do I need to apply for this child to grow perfectly? We are applying mango fertilizer for the tomatoes. And it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So we are all growing up in what we call, in our process, we call it suicide, second image. We are all trying to be somebody else to be accepted. Check it. 90% of humanity, we are all growing up trying, when I'm like this person, I'll be accepted. And that person is also trying to be like somebody else. So who are you trying
to be?
So we need to actually pause and give attention to growing the empowered child. And identify the fundamental issues are fear, anger, and loss of the sense of uniqueness. If we can ask the simple problem, in what way do I raise a child who knows himself, who believes in herself, not from what people are telling him or her, but from what he or she has discovered? If we can ask that simple question, the answer will produce the empowered child, an empowered society, and the world will change.
You, as a parent, even though you play a whole lot in bringing up your child, after you've played your part, you unleash that child onto society. He has to go to school, to church, to the mosque, to play on the field. And all those parts of society also, is feeding this child with, the normal robotic upbringing. Mm-hmm. Where there must be a conflict in your children's life, I may say, because they've come home and you are giving them a structured upbringing where, look, I know that you mechanic, but then they go out and
my daughter came home one day, Daddy, mathematics is difficult, that's me, I can't learn math. I said, that's wonderful. Who said so? But I know it. I myself look at myself, I don't like math. Math is difficult. Now here is a girl whose lowest marks in mathematics maybe was 80. Because it was always 70, 80, 90. I love math, so I teach my children. As a parent, I don't believe you must have a teacher teaching your children unless by chance you are yourself not educated. But I believe you must make time. Time is the most precious thing you can give to a child. So I sat always with them and learned with them. So when she came and told me this, I said, oh, that's wonderful. But who said math is difficult? Well, I know it. So which among your friends also believe so? She mentioned a few friends. Oh, Abina says math is difficult. And then I said, okay, that's wonderful. So I went to the room, brought her past papers, and then we studied. So you got 80. Yeah, you got 90. So is math difficult? Yes, it's difficult. Who believes it's difficult? Well, all of my friends believe it's difficult. Then I started down. Give me difference between you and Abina. I am dark, Abina is fair. What else? I am tall, Abena is short. What else? Say, so are you Abena? No. I did that between her and everybody. So all of the friends she mentioned. We call it differentiation. I differentiated her from the mind from Abena. When anybody came to my class, when I was teaching in Oakfield Engineering, the first thing we do in the class is differentiation. Because they come in with, their father is a tyrant, the teacher was cruel. They come in and they see me, another male figure, and they equating me to every male who has molested them or bullied them in the past. So first in my class is for everybody to rise up and tell me the difference between me and your male heroes, whether they are your fathers and so on. So you see, I was able to correct it in my daughter, and she realized that for herself, maths is enjoyable. And she still taught maths. She's now in a medical school.
I see. And that's what
That's what parenting is about. Be part of their learning. Do you know the names of your children, your child's friends? Do you know all of their mates? If my child has 10 friends, I need to know at least 8 of them. Is your child happy when you are coming home, or they are afraid daddy or mommy is coming home? If there's a question mark there, then there's something wrong with your parenting. Never tell your child something that you cannot fulfill. Don't promise what you cannot fulfill to a child, because children are black and white thinkers. If you say it and you don't provide it, then you are cruel. You are cruel means it's a cruel world. A child goes out to school and wants to be cruel to other children. You tell a child, bad boy, bad girl, it doesn't feel right, he goes to school, wants to pass it on by ridiculing other children. If every school will have it as a rule that there must be no ridiculing in the school, if instead of children sitting down and being taught, a teacher teaches for 10 minutes and tell the children, can you tell your friends what you have learnt? So they can be expressive.
Brother Ishmael, if we spare the rod as much as you say,
spare the rod and spoil the child. Misuse the rod and break the child. Misuse of the rod will break the child equally. There are steps. You see, we have researched into the human mind and spirit. If even you have to punish a child, there's a difference between punishment and discipline. Punishment is what you do to the child to vent out your anger, to feel some release. Discipline is what you do to the child to help the child become better. So when you are going to do anything, check. What I'm doing, is it for my child to become better? Will my method produce the goal? If not, then it's wrong. But we never ask this. You see, like you said, we need a whole program so that I talk about the steps of parenting. And even questions every parent need to ask themselves to know whether they are actually being effective in their parenting or not.
Because my worry is that there's a section of society that may even understand what you're taking or watching the program and will take it on. However, there's a great portion of society who are also reproducing and are going to miss this information. And if you step back as a nation at large, do the states take it as a policy to check it from kindergarten level?
It must be a state policy. This must be an international policy. We know that it is fear and anger that causes all the problems. And no nation has said, in what way do we raise children who are free from fear and anger? In this book, Growing the Empowered Child, I've shared some formulas and exact processes. Over time, I may keep improving them. But when we ask the question, in what way do we raise children who accept and embrace themselves, who are free from fear and anger? In what way do we do that in the school system? The school system is the place where children gather most. And at least we can start it there. Look, if your child were coming to my church and going through the Growing the Empowered Child program, over time, you will hardly recognize your own child. Because children go to their parents and the parents are angry and they know how to change the feelings of their parents. Because we teach them. When your father is angry, what do you do to make daddy happy? Children learn how to do it here.
Thank you very much. Been speaking to Brother Ishmael Tete on growing the empowered child. And this week, that's all we're going to do. Feed ourselves with positive ideas to make us better citizens. Brother Ishmael, thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
I trust we'll meet again.
Yes.
Thank you.